Greetings, guys. Welcome back to This is Crossfire with the cyber hitchhiker behind the mic. Shout out to all of our Joy Radio listeners and to anyone else who is tuning into this podcast. Welcome. Thank you for giving us your time. And as always, I hope that we can give you a good 30 to 40 minutes of content for this episode. Guys, I've got another awesome guest. I'm feeling very blessed, actually, because I've had such amazing people that have come onto the show in the last month. It's been absolutely insane. Dr. Ron Archer from America, who joined me, who's a massive guy over there, who's now coming to South Africa. Guys, don't forget, we are bringing him to South Africa in September and October, and he's going to be available for speaking in Gauteng, Durban, and Cape Town. And then last week, I got to sit and speak with Ronald Warren, who is the CEO and Vice President of CareNet, which is a pregnancy crisis center organization who's been operating in America for the last 50 years. And that was an amazing interview about pro-abundant life. Today, because I don't want to keep her just sitting there and listening to me talk, guys, we want to hear from Vera Vencatasamy. And she's a Phoenix girl, I believe. I know that you're staying in Hillcrest now, Vera.
Yes, absolutely.
Believe it or not, I'm a Phoenix boy.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
I lived in Phoenix for just on 7 years while I was in Durban, working with the Indian community there. And my pastor, Aaron Munsami, is the lead pastor at Cares Church, and that's my base church, Cares Church, out in Verulam. So I was very cool. It was very cool when Ashley said to me, "Vera is an Indian, a Phoenix girl like you," and I was like, "Oh, cool. I hope you're not meaning I'm a girl, but I'm definitely from Phoenix like you are." So, Vera, it's so awesome to have you on the show. For those that don't know, Vera is an author. She's also been in secular work for over 30 years, I believe. Vera, just before I carry on talking, what did you do for 30 years secular? Where did you work, and what is your actual skill set? What did you do?
Yeah, so I'm Vera Vencatasamy, as you've introduced me. For so many years, I've been in the communications and marketing industry. So I've pretty much had that background from the time I was a student, and I studied public relations and communications, and then I went on to work in media consultancies. So I have had a very, very long career in communications and marketing. So it took me, to different areas, and I've worked in huge corporates. Obviously, there's some, obviously I don't know if I'm allowed to mention them on the.
Yes, no, you can definitely, as long as they don't mind you mentioning them. It's free advertising for them anyway. So
Yes, it is free advertising. So I worked for brands such as Supersport, MultiChoice. So there's, huge brands, publishing companies as well. I did some work for Shooter and Shooter publishing, and so there's a lot of history. I worked on the Rugby World Cup. I worked on the FIFA World Cup launches here in Durban as well. So there's quite a lot there, and obviously sport is huge. It's a huge industry, and I worked in marketing for sport for quite a long time as well.
okay, so just before we get into where you are working now, because you're now working for an NGO, I believe, and you can mention who it is. I know who it is, but you can mention who it is. Just for the guys that might go, you know what, we always hear this word media consultant being thrown around. Now, I'm a media guy, not in your area of media by any chance. I've got a master's in digital marketing and a master's in graphic design. And I'm more on the content creation side of things, web development, app development, and that. But I do videography, I do photography, I do everything. I love creative content and creating content, especially digital content. But your side of things when it comes to media consultancy and marketing is very different. For those that might be wanting to go into the kind of career that you had, that might be young and listen, I hope I've got some young Gen Zs listening to the show. What exactly is media consultancy and marketing in the areas and the fields that you were involved with?
Yeah, so you must remember, obviously, I started back when the digital space was not huge. And so I've seen this whole landscape change and evolve, and it has been absolutely exciting. Well, a consultancy basically is a business that has multiple clients. So you're not working for one particular corporate, you're working for multiple corporates, multiple clients, and you're doing different aspects. Whether you're doing a magazine for them, you might be doing layout and design, you might be doing mailers, you might be working on databases for certain projects, for certain clients. So there's various. Obviously, each client will have different specifications and wanting you to do different briefs, whether they want you to do a whole video shoot for them. That's obviously a different briefing altogether, but more into what we currently experience. So the consultancies currently will be doing work such as social media content. They will also be doing website development, mailers, database development, Facebook, social media is obviously still huge, and an emphasis on content creation there. So it's exciting times, but also a time where there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of messaging out there, and it's hard to get one particular voice being heard. And so for young people, I think it will be a challenge, but exciting to go into consultancy at the moment, offering different services to clients.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there because I'm a jack of all trades. Like I said, I do everything from video editing, videographing, the storyboarding, the back end work, the digital marketing side of things with setting up sponsored ads and creating campaigns, managing social media. And guys, I can tell you it's an amazing field. You don't have to get into it when you're too young. You can always go and work for someone for 10 years. And then when you're in your 30s, decide to move out on your own. But I always say to people, Vera, that are in our field, you can literally don't get scared to work for yourself. Because with the skill set you can develop, you can work for yourself and tend to sort of write your own hours.
Yes.
And your own paychecks.
Yes, absolutely.
And for young people, I think it's important to know that because the Gen Zs especially, they've grown up with devices since they were born. So it comes naturally to them most of the time. So when you said you were in consultancy, did you work for other firms or did you have your own business and you had all of these guys that you were consulting for?
Yeah, so mine is an interesting story. It's part of the story in my book as well.
Yes, that's right. You wrote a book. It's called Masterpiece. That's why we're busy talking today. Right. Okay, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the book itself, I talk about being an intern. And also I studied, as I mentioned before, I studied communications and public relations. And then, you had to do your intern year. And I was fortunate enough to get some kind of practical experience and then, get into a consultancy, which I didn't own, but I just worked as an intern, and I was a very good one, I think, because I got employed as a permanent worker, and thereafter I worked for several years. And eventually, the lady that owned the consultancy was immigrating. And so I don't want to give too much away from my book, but it's all in the book. And she was leaving the country and offered me an opportunity to take over the business. And that's how I ended up also having the consultancy as part of my business.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I've just got into consultancy now that I've got my master's degree. I studied it part-time for 9 years. I finally got it last year, November. And I opened up, it's just me, sole director, sole proprietor, sole employee. What the Digital Pty Limited is my consultancy. And I love charging people per hour to just talk to them on the phone and have digital meetings with them. I think it's a crazy concept, but it's an amazing concept because you get to impart knowledge and help people. And that's what I love doing. I believe in legacy. And I think that's why you have written this book, is because you've gained a lifetime worth of experiences, both in work and in personal. So just quickly, before we start talking about Masterpiece, guys, which is the book that Vera has written, and this is what we're going to be discussing mostly on the show, where are you spending most of your time now? Because I believe that I don't know if you're working full-time or just volunteering or what you're doing, but you're working for an NGO.
Yes, so obviously my life has completely changed from the corporate world, and I am the communications director actually at Focus on the Family Africa.
I know Focus on the Family well. Graham Schnell's a good friend of mine. Ashley's a friend. Graham's also the chairperson of the Association of Christian Media, who I work very closely with. So it was very cool when Ashley contacted me and said, hey, Vera's working for us at Focus. She's just written a book. Don't you want to interview her? And that's why I love having these connections, because I'm so far below where you guys are on any sort of scale. So for me to sit here and have you guys on the show and for you guys to share your knowledge and for me to learn at the same time I love it. Nothing more than sitting down with people like yourself and getting to know you. So Vera, we are here to talk about Masterpiece.
Absolutely. Can I show?
Yes, no, please go ahead and show it. I mean, we're going to splash it all over the thumbnails that I create, but
Yeah. So this is
right.
the book.
So that's masterpiece. It's got a cracked, what is that? A cracked glass.
Yes, yes. It
Oh,
has yes, it is a cracked glass. So it's really showing you what the title is really about, because it is called Masterpiece, but it is about the pieces of our lives. So that is really the theme of the book. It's the pieces, the broken pieces. And I talk about the broken pieces of my life.
Yeah.
And that is what the book is really about, all the broken pieces of our lives, and how the only person that can actually take those pieces and turn them into a masterpiece is God.
Yeah, I found the cover very refreshing because you wouldn't associate a cracked sort of window piece of glass pane on the cover of a book called Masterpiece. But let me tell you, when I saw that cover, the first thing that I thought about was how the Japanese take these broken dishes and
Yes.
put them together with the gold filling and turn them into a masterpiece after it's been broken. And I haven't read your book yet, but I've read a lot of the bits and pieces of your book that I've seen through various articles that have been published in online papers and the interviews that you've done online, and listened to a lot of what you've had to say about the book. And you touch on a lot of deep personal issues in the book in order to help people, which I commend you for, because a lot of people can't do that. But you didn't have sort of the best childhood, if I can say that. It was filled with a lot of trauma. Go briefly into that part of your life, because that, I believe, shaped you as a person and brought you out to who you are today. For those that might be listening, going through the same kinds of things that you might have experienced as a child, what were these traumatic experiences that you discuss briefly in the book, and how did that sort of shape your character into what you are today?
So as a child, I talk about it obviously when I start talking about the book, and when I was a 6-year-old at school, I experienced severe bullying at school. And so that was very traumatic. I was a child that didn't feel that was worthy enough. I always felt second best. And so that reflected in my school results. I wasn't always, the brightest in the class. And I always kept comparing myself to the others. And we lived in an area which wasn't Phoenix at that time. I know we talked about Phoenix earlier on, but it was an area that my dad, we had to move because my dad had a job in. And that area was slightly affluent, but we weren't. We were just people that were renting in an apartment. And so I felt very insecure, and the insecurities started playing in my life because of words that were spoken into my life from other kids. And so those words played in my life, and that was really, really a hard time in my life. And I also talk about my mom, who played an instrumental role in helping me to be the confident person I am, because she counted those words with words of affirmation, which I believe is so important as a parent, even now, to speak those words into your child's life or your children's lives. It's so important to speak positive words that will encourage. Those words will live on even when we are not here. And then, so I talk about that in the book. I talk about an incident of abuse as a child. So there's a lot going on in the first part of my life that has played a role now. The moments of forgiveness, where you've got to forgive the person that has abused you, even as a child. When that person, even if it's a lot of people experience this with family members, but in my case, it was a person that was a stranger. But even so, I had to also forgive. And it sometimes takes time for you to do that, but you've got to let go in order for you to grow, in order for you to be used by God. And it's hard. Those things are not easy, because this life and this world is unfair. It's never fair. And when you look at a child that's gone through some kind of trauma, you think to yourself, that's an innocent child who doesn't know. And you think, but did God allow it? And so those are the questions I ask even in the book. And so it's a book that reflects. It reflects back, but it also shows you how God can heal and how he restores and how he's still there in those moments of trauma. So that was the first part. And then obviously I talk about grief a lot because I lost my mom when I was 16. And that was a very traumatic time in my life when I had to go through that process of learning that she was ill for a very short time. And also her death was really, it really affected me quite badly in my life. I think I just thought the world was just being too unfair to me at that time. So yes, I talk about it in the book itself, and I talk about how, from a child's perspective, how would you look at your mom who's suffering with cancer, and how would what's the feelings those feelings that you go through, and the questions that you have to ask God even during those times, and how still how He is still a restorer of all things, is a healer.
Yeah, it's amazing how as time expands from these situations, especially if you understand your place as a child of God and that there is a creator and that we're created with plans and purposes in our lives. As time expands from these events, you start seeing God's plan in all of this suffering, as well as the good times and the bad times.
Yeah.
You see how He knits everything together in order to make you better and draw you closer to Him, I think. Now tell me, you keep speaking about God. Let me ask you this question, because I love to know these experiences more than any others. Tell me the moment that you met God, asked Him into your heart. When did that happen, and how old were you when that happened?
So I grew up in a Christian family. We didn't really have any other religion, to be honest. I've always been at Sunday school, and I've always learned about God. And so that was really, it was something that it was a foundational. It was our faith, was always there. But I would say that because of these situations that I experienced, I don't think I fully understood God until I went through those circumstances. And I think when my mom died, I started to have that relationship with God, because I started to speak to Him intimately. Like, I was asking God these questions. I was, even the times when I was angry at God, but it was still that time where I literally knew that He was ever present. So I really do think that it was when I was just 16 years old that I really had a revelation of who He was, even through the darkness. Because all through this time, I had, we went to church, we read the Bible, but I think my faith was tested, but He was speaking more in that situation. So I would say at 16, I truly had an encounter with the Lord.
Yeah. The only reason why I'm asking Vera this question, guys, is because I get this a lot when I speak to young people who've grown up in a Christian home. And I always say to them, you might just be doing the rituals. Because you grew up in a Christian home, you might be going to church because your parents went to church. Because that's what happened with me. My mom went to church. My dad hated the Lord, unfortunately. We had a very, very divided household, with my mom being an amazing Christian example and my dad being the exact opposite: drunk, abusive, hateful towards everyone and everything. So it was a terrible situation to be in as a child. But I went to church because I loved my mom and she took me to church.
Yes.
And it was very easy for me when I was 19 to turn my back on God and go into syndicated crime for 17 years and go to the darkest places on the planet, and only come back to the Lord and truly have a moment like you did when you were 16, when I was 36 years old. So that was around 11 years ago now this year. I know I look a lot younger than what I am. You also look a lot younger. I was actually going to ask you if you've got a filter on, because I was going, where did this 30 years working in media consultancy actually fit in? Because you do not look like you have 30 years of work experience there. But I think the Lord keeps us young as well. People always say to me that I'm actually aging the opposite direction. But I think it's because of our relationship with God that happens. He wants to keep us young for ministry. But it's important to have that moment where this is where my relationship with the Lord has started. Because I meet a lot of young people that have grown up in the church and they don't have that moment. They're like, Vaughan, we can't put our finger on when God came into our lives or anything like that. It's sort of like we've just always done it. And I'm like, guys, you have to have a moment. There has to be that point where it goes from ritual to relationship. And sometimes, like we were saying, God allows things to happen in order for us to get to these moments.
Yeah.
Now, your mom died when you were 16. You had an amazing career after your late teenage years. How did you get through that? Was your dad around? Did you have family support?
Yes. So what happened? As I said, I'm going to give everything away now of the in the book. But so when my mom passed away, I did have my dad, and it was just my dad and I for a very long time because my sister had, she went off and got married. She was already preparing for her wedding. Actually, it was quite a tragic time because my mom died just a week before her wedding. So it was just a chaotic time, should I say. And so I was just left with my dad, to be quite honest. And it was very, very lonely, I think, for me, because suddenly I had to forge this relationship with my dad. And if you know, and I talk about it in the book as well, because I think a lot of people from my generation, at least, struggle with the relationship with the dad, because my dad was from that generation who never showed emotion.
Yeah.
So my dad never hugged. He never hugged me. He never consoled me when I was crying. It was like, get over it, or
Yeah.
you by yourself. You're never going to be hugged and told that it's going to be okay. So it's also was, it was challenging for me, because that whole time of being with my dad, it was like he would just be quiet. My dad would never talk. He'd just be absolutely silent, and then I would want to talk because I'm a communicator. And so it was also those times of clashes with my dad, and it was difficult times. It was hard to be in a relationship with my dad alone, because suddenly we were a family, and now we were just two of us in this home. And so it was quite challenging for me. I think I wouldn't have made it without some good friends along the way, some school friends that kept me sane and on a clear path. I know I talk about it in the book as well, about writing my matric exam. I talk about writing my grade 11 exam, which was so difficult. I think I blanked out in one exam totally. So I don't know how I got through it all, except to say that, it's obviously the hand of God, some good friends who kept me going, helped me get through the whole studying process. And just, people that God places in your life, even if there's strangers that have come into your life for that season, he placed those people, and I'm very, very blessed to have known those people in seasons of my life.
Right. So, guys, like Vera keeps saying, she doesn't want to give too much of the book away. And I don't want to touch on too much, because I want you guys to really go out and read Masterpiece, because I'm going to be doing that. I will be buying the ebook on Amazon because it's available on Amazon, and I'll be reading it. Is it available as an Audible? And the only reason I'm asking this is for the Gen Zs. Every time I speak to a Gen Z, they're like, oh, is the book available as an Audible? Can I just put my headphones on and listen to the book? Is it available as an Audible?
No, not currently, but perhaps in the future. So the book was just launched just a month and a half ago. So we're still working on that.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw my 10 cents in here. One of the specialist things that I do, because I work with a lot of authors, is help them to turn their books into audibles using their own voice.
Oh, okay.
And all I need is 20 minutes of you talking. So I'll just take this interview that we're doing right now, and I've got an AI program that is an offline AI program that I got from GitHub. It's open source software, and I've trained it to basically listen to a certain person's voice for 20 to 30 minutes, pick up their mannerisms, and then speak exactly the same way that they would have spoken in order to create. And then all I do is feed the PDF into the program, and it creates the Audible book from that.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I'll even do just a couple of pages of your book to show you how it works, and you can decide if you want to use it or not. But it took me a long time to get it right. But I'm actually just promoting my own business now, and I don't want to do that. But guys, if you need this kind of service, you know where to find me. But most importantly, guys, I want you to get Vera's book, read Masterpiece, and get to know a little bit more about her, because it's not really about Vera, although it is. It's about her experiences and how they can help you through your situations.
Yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of a philosophy behind Masterpiece, I believe, Vera. Do you want to touch on that briefly? Because I do hope, and I know that we have discussed this off air, you're one of the few people that I would really like to have as a content, sort of a person that provides content for Joy Radio and for my 2 hours of on-air time and for the podcast. And I don't ask a lot of my guests, 10 to 15 minutes a week of an audio session. And you can discuss whatever you want to discuss, whatever God lays on your heart, any knowledge and legacy that you can impart in these sessions. You can feel free, and you can promote your book as much as you want every week in these sessions. So I'll leave that in the ball in your court to think about. But the one thing I do want to talk about is, and only because this hits very hard, hits home to me. You and your husband. Now, we haven't even mentioned your husband yet, but Vera is married. She does have a family, and she does have a daughter. You did things very differently. And
Yes.
what I found the most crazy about this, but also the most refreshing, is this wasn't your backup plan. This was what you guys wanted to do. So please tell the people what I'm talking about here, because this is an amazing thing for me, for a couple to actually do this kind of thing. It blows me away.
Okay, so yes, so I think you're talking about our adoption process and the fact that my daughter was never my backup. She was my first choice, my first plan. And yeah, I think for me, it stemmed, I in the book itself, I led up to it in the fact that, from my childhood, just stating that we experienced this kind of loneliness or trauma in losing a parent or parents, and I lost both my parents, and I felt that I missed family, and I think that was the thing that was inside of my heart all along. And I knew when I married my husband that I wanted something for a child that didn't have a family.
Mm.
And that was always my first choice. I was always going to adopt. It was something that played in my heart. And I was very much socially aware of the South African situation and the number of children that are left without parents, number of children that are left abandoned in South Africa. And for me, that was always a very, very, very strong point in my heart. And I think when I had met my husband, that was also one of the things that we talked about before we got married. It wasn't something that we just, it sprung up because we wanted to have children, start a family. It was very much an important part of our lives. And I think we were very socially aware of what is going on in our country as well. And we also were very much aware that family makes such a big difference. It is the foundation of our society. It is the foundation of everything. And I saw what institutionalized homes do to kids. When I say institutionalized, I mean our homes that keep children that don't have parents. They do such a great job because they care for those children, but they do not provide family.
Correct. Yeah.
And I've seen this over and over and over again, what a mother and a father, one parent at least, can do for a child, and how it can change a child's life. It can change generations to come. And for me, that was always my first choice. And so my daughter is my first choice. She's the love that found us. And honestly, she's everything to us. And even the whole adoption process was a miracle. It was truly a miracle. And the way in which our process was done was also slightly different from everybody else's. So I don't know whether God was just saying, I need to test your faith more and more and more because you need to rely on me and not anybody else. So I didn't, our process was quite different, where we didn't even have a process of bonding. So you would have a social worker that would present you with a child that is available for adoption. And you go onto a list. It's a long process. There's a lot of documentation. There's a lot of red tape as well. And then, even with our process, we never had time to bond with our child, where people usually do. The mother's bond, and ours wasn't. We were love at first sight. It was just the hand of God. We truly trusted the Lord. It was an act of faith that this was what God was doing. This child was ours because He ordained it, and He made a way where there seemed to be no way. So, so one day she will share her story. So a lot of in the book is truly my story and my perspective of how she was adopted. But one day she'll give her version of her life. So I don't speak too much about her background and her situation because it's her story to tell. And mine is just the gift that was given, the miracle that happened because the Lord was faithful, as he always is, but he also certainly blows our mind. And there's some moments in life that truly, they cannot be described even in words or even in the book itself.
Yeah, now the reason I'm actually tearing up a little bit, yeah, if you can't see, this kind of thing is very personal to me, Vera. You know, I was born 6 weeks premature, and I was thrown straight into an incubator. So I had no mother for the first 6 months of my life. I was translucent. You could see my organs. I could fit into a size 3 shoebox. I was about that big. Because my mom was 15, barely 16 when she had me. My father was in his late 20s. And his family was coming from a very wealthy background. My birth mother was from a very poor background, and they thought she fell pregnant just because she wanted the money. So she was forced to run away from East London, and she had to go to her granny who was living on a farm in Queenstown in the Eastern Cape. And she had me under serious stress. That's why I was premature. And I was rushed straight to the East London hospital, Buffalo City now.
Sure.
And I was put into an incubator and given up for adoption without knowing my birth parents at all. And from a small child, my mom told me the story of how she got phoned by the social services agent and she got told, come to the hospital. We've got a candidate here for you. Come and have a look at this little boy. Tell us if you want him. And my mom always told me the story. I mean, she never kept it from me. So from as young as I can remember, she told me the story, which is one of the things I think any adopted parent should do. The child should always know.
Absolutely.
And she said to me, when I walked into that theater and saw you in an incubator, God said to me, that is your son. And it wasn't about blood. It was preordained by God. And then the shocking part for me, like you said, these things don't happen easily, was I get cold when I think about it. My mom gave me a shoebox when I was 18. And she said, here's the process that we had to go through to get you.
Yeah.
And I saw back and forth letters, because back in those days, it was typing out typewrite letters, writing in ink back in the 70s. And I saw 7 years before I was born, my mom had started the process of trying to adopt.
Sure.
And somehow it never happened. And then all of a sudden, when I was born, the social guys got hold of her and said, come and have a look at this little boy. And I was like, for 7 years you were trying before you finally took me.
Yeah.
You know, and I was that precious, precious son that she had always wanted. Then she adopted my sister 3 years later from a different family. And it was also their choice to adopt.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
this is an amazing story. And I mean, I've seen the pictures of your little girl on Instagram, and she is absolutely stunning. She is so beautiful. She looks so happy. And you know what? It's not even about, because she is obviously not Indian, but she is part of your family.
Absolutely.
This is the crazy thing that I don't understand, because you know what? We're fighting a case in South Africa at the moment. I've got a good friend, Melissa Hertz, who is part of the pro-life movement, and she's got a project called Project Life, and they've got these baby saver drop boxes throughout the country, where if a mother wants to go and drop off her baby in a safe place, she can do that, because it's a criminal act in South Africa to abandon your child. But if a mother who's in pregnancy crisis walks into a clinic and wants to give up her baby, the process that she has to go through is so intimidating sometimes, with having to call social service agents and all this kind of thing. And the mother might just want to drop the baby off and leave, and she's not allowed to because she can be prosecuted. They want to make everything criminal about these baby savers.
Yes.
And they also, one of the things the government says is, we don't want our black babies put into other colored homes, whether it's a white, Indian, or colored person. We don't want them. So what would you rather have that child do then? Would you rather have them have a family, or would you rather have them just be in a system, or even maybe aborted because the mother doesn't have any other choice? And there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with your little girl. She looks, and like I said, she seems like she is in the best place she could possibly be. She does not even see a difference, I'm sure, because you guys are family.
Yes.
And that is amazing, Vera.
Yeah, it is, so I'm always pro-adoption, and we have a fantastic community as well, where we have other friends who have adopted, and so it's wonderful to see these blended families as well.
Beautiful.
And to see that love is the language. Love
Divine.
is everything. And love wins over everything, every kind of difference that we may think in our human mind, that there's a difference between us, between our cultures, our language differences, our belief systems. But love, that wins over all. And also, I do believe in identity. I talk about it in the book about identity, looking at your past, looking at where you've come from, your culture. I believe that even as a parent that is an Indian, I will do my very best to show my daughter that the multicultural South Africa that we live in, and to show her that she comes from a tribe of people that are from this land, and I will always embrace that, and I will always praise that as well. So she has an opportunity to be both cultures. She has both cultures in her, and she has an opportunity to do whatever she wants to do, even as she grows, to look at that culture, to embrace it, to embrace the music, the dance, and everything that is good. So, I do believe that there is room and there's space for everyone. And I feel that we make those things up, where we feel that there's a difference, or there's somebody that's saying, we've also had this conversation with the Department of Social Development, and where there's someone that feels that a child of a different race can't be in a family, of the different race. And that is just somebody's, I think the issues that they are facing in their lives, where they don't feel like, we can all come together. And there's no difference when it comes to love, when it comes to family, when it comes to learning what is good and morally upright. I think we all have those universal values.
Yeah. I think a child just wants to be a child and be happy and loved in a loving home and family.
Absolutely.
And my fight with the government at the moment, with these nonsense stories that they come with, trying to divide people by color. Your culture has got nothing to do with your color. So your daughter is going to grow up and want to go find out where she comes from anyway, regardless of how she's raised.
Yeah.
You'll eventually come of an age where you'll go, you know what, I just want to go and find out where I originate. And she can go on her own journey, and she'll probably write a book about it.
Absolutely. And I think that that's important, that we have these open communication and open conversations with our children as well. And there's nothing that we should be kept a secret. It shouldn't be like, this is where you can't talk about looking for where you come from, your culture, your background. And there shouldn't be that barrier. And I think sometimes it's not spoken about, because I have these kind of conversations even with other parents. I think we feel a little bit insecure being a parent of a child that's adopted, where you feel that child wouldn't love you, the way that you want the child to love you. And I think that's also a conversation to talk about. But I do believe that the more we have these open conversations, and the more we embrace diversity, and also help our children understand where they've come from, and our journey as well. To be totally honest and open with them. It's not always easy, but it's something that we should be doing.
Yeah, and I mean, you're never too old to learn, because everyone that knows me in the Indian community and all the pastors that I work with, they will tell you that Vaughan's Indian on the inside.
Yes.
And one of the craziest things, eye-openers for me, and I'll let you end off after this because I know that you need to go. But, I went into the Indian community and lived there, had my flat there in Phoenix, just behind Plaza.
Yes.
Everyone knows Plaza in Phoenix. That's why I mentioned
Yes.
it, for all the guys that will be listening and hearing, oh, yeah, we know Plaza. And, I started going to people's homes and having meals. And my preconceived mindset from where I came from was, if you eat with your hands, it's because you're dirty and you're poor. And I went to the Indian community, and every house I went to, there were no knives and forks. And I was like, at first it was the more not rich community. I don't want to call them poor, but the guys that had less money. And I thought, yeah, you see, it's because they're poor. Then I started going to extremely wealthy Indians' homes, and there was still no cutlery. And I can't use a knife and fork now, Vera. I use my hands. But you know what? The Lord used that small little thing and said to me, you see, you had a preconceived idea in your mind about Indians eating with their hands, and that's because they're poor and they're dirty, when it's actually a cultural thing. It's got nothing to do with money or status or anything. It is part of their culture. And I've learned so much. You know, the Indian community for me is one of the most amazing communities when it comes to family. Knowing where everyone lives, knowing who they are, knowing and still being in touch with all your aunties, cousins, uncles, nieces, nephews. They know everyone. Where I come from, we don't know where our aunties are. We don't know our cousins. Everyone's living on different places. And I found it so refreshing seeing how much family, cross-cultural, regardless of whether it was a Christian, a Muslim, a secular Indian, family was so ingrained in your culture. And that's why it's so cool to listen to you guys talk, because the rest of the world needs to catch on to this, especially in South Africa. You know, I always tell to people, you know what? More people need to go and live in Phoenix. More people need to go and live in Chatsworth and in Verulam and live there for years and experience what I've experienced, because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been when it comes to people.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing. Now, let's end off with this, Vera, because I know that you need to go. Why should people buy Masterpiece and read it? What are they going to get out of the book?
Okay, so Masterpiece is, as I mentioned, you know, it's a memoir, but it's more than that. When I take people on a journey, it's really not about me. It's about how God has shown me how faithful He is, and in every season of my life, there's a lesson. And as much as I'm talking about me, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about people's lives. And I feel that when I talk about these different seasons, people are going to relate to it, because they can relate to at least one or two seasons of their lives. You know, I talk about bullying and grief. I talk about work as being an intern. I talk about business. So people are going to relate to this book. It's not a story about my life and how I've made it. It's really about showing the faithfulness, the goodness of God, the devotion. There's the devotion in the book itself. There's scripture, there's the word of God in the book itself as well. And I feel like it is for that person that is feeling lonely, that person that is broken, that person that is suffering with grief, that person that is struggling even in their job and looking for a job, even if it's a young person that's looking to even get an internship. This book is for them. It's a book about faith, and it's a book about family as well. So if a person's thinking about adoption or just having a family, you know, I talk about those seasons in life that we also, you know, there are people that are struggling to have children. And so they're also going, God has not forgotten them as well, you know. So I talk about that too. And I talk about being a single person for a long time. So there's different things, and I feel like there's something for everyone in this book.
Right. Well, I've been single for a very long time, and my pastor is trying to find me a nice Indian wife. He says, Vaughan, you have to marry an Indian wife. I said, I don't care at this point. I don't mind what color she is. As long as I get a wife, I'm happy, because I don't have a lot of time left.
All right. So Vera, I'll be looking in our family as well for you now that I know this.
The more hands on, the better for me. That's awesome. Guys, Vera is, I'm 90% sure she's going to be able to give us some content on a weekly basis and find 10 minutes out of her hectic schedule to record some sessions for us. I've always wanted someone from Focus on the Family giving me content. To have you will be the perfect fit, Vera. No pressure, just letting you know. I can't wait to start working with you more. I can see that you're wanting to go. So guys, this is the end of the discussion with Vera Vencatasamy and the book Masterpiece. Go out and find it. You can get it on Amazon. Just search it on Amazon. Very easy to find. It's available for print. Yeah.
No, I just want to say it's also on my website. So that's easier for people, because I think they struggle with Amazon a little bit, but it's easy. They can get a print copy, which I can easily get to them if they go onto my website. Can I give the website details?
You can give the website. I'll also put a QR code up on the screen for our interview when it comes out, but you can give the website link.
It's www.veraofficial.co.za.
Right. So that's veraofficial.co.za, guys, so that you know that it really is Vera and that she is official. And this is officially the end of the interview. Vera, it's been awesome chatting. I'm pretty sure we can get together and have another conversation later down the line, but we look forward to working with you in the future. God bless you with everything that you're doing, your focus on the family work, your husband, your daughter, and everything in between. We thank you so much for giving us this book masterpiece and allowing us into your life and drawing back the blinds and letting people in. A lot of people don't do that. Thank you so much for your time, Vera. This is Vaughn. For all of those tuning into Crossfire and obviously my alter ego, the Cyber Hitchhiker, saying goodbye and God bless.